3.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Thanks for joining us on Sex Talks with Steph. I'm your host, Steph, and joining me later tonight will be Mr. Greg Taylor, here to tell you all about the lifestyle. What does it mean and who takes part? Stay tuned to find out. Following Greg, we'll hear from Ibrahim, a proponent of the polyamorous lifestyle. All that and more coming up on tonight's show. So today's topic is going to be non-monogamy. And here we have Greg joining us, and he'll be talking to us a little bit later on about the swinging lifestyle. Welcome, Greg.
Nice to be here, Steph.
So I originally thought of this because I came across this interesting little app the other day called Thrinder. So basically, the app is based off of the really popular dating app called Tinder, except this one matches couples or singles into threesome relationships. It's as easy as 1, 2, 3.
Wow, seems pretty interesting. I wonder if it's getting a lot of popularity.
Well, that's interesting because a study done by researchers at the University of Michigan found that around 4% of the population actually engages in consensual non-monogamy. And so this number is going to include any form of relationship where extradyadic relationships and sexual contact are permitted by both partners. So many of you might have heard of the term open relationship, but what exactly is it? So the consensus in the literature seems to be that an open relationship is one where extradyadic sexual contact is allowed by both partners. And then the first priority always remains the main partner. Hosking found that the couple will set explicit rules around what is appropriate behavior and what is unacceptable behavior when it comes to additional partners. The rules typically include things such as no emotional commitment, no bringing extra partners into the house, the number of times they can see the same person. And some partners will emphasize the importance of being open and honest, whereas others will prefer that the relationship is sort of kept closed and secret.
Well, that's very interesting, but these people must not really love each other or be truly committed to their relationships then, right?
You know, I'm really glad that you actually asked that question, Greg, because that's one of the biggest myths that we have surrounding open relationships. Hosking also found that those who had an open relationship and followed the explicit rules that they had set with their partner had relationships that lasted significantly longer than the typical monogamous relationships. They also found that open relationships were equal on the level of intimacy and commitment and were not any less satisfying. And what's also interesting is that similar findings were replicated in another study done by LaSalle in 2004, and they found that non-monogamous relational structures actually improved the dyadic commitment and improved the couple's sex life.
Sweet. So if you're saying that if I had an open relationship, I could do whatever I want, wherever I wanted, and my partner would be okay with that? I can tell them that I think it's for the good of the relationship for me to sleep with whoever I want?
Well, wouldn't that be nice? Maybe in the perfect world, but probably not. Both Hosking and LaSalle found that in order for an open relationship to work, you have to have open communication with your partner and you have to follow the rules that you've both set. So it's not exactly a free-for-all. Both studies found that breaking the rules in non-monogamous relationships were the same consequences were found as if you were to cheat on your partner in a regular monogamous relationship.
Okay, fine. Maybe it's not as easy as I thought. So if they really love their partner and they would have set all these kind of rules, then what's the point of being in an open relationship?
Well, obviously that's something that's going to be unique to every individual and every couple, but there are a few reasons that are the most popular for why people would choose to open their relationship. Research done by Hosking found that some couples open their relationship to keep things from getting stale and to keep passion alive. So they found that it was a really great way for them to be able to satisfy high passion encounters while still keeping their close emotional bond with their primary partner. Researchers in London also found that extradyadic sex could be a great way to mend discrepancies in sex drives between two partners. Another researcher, Robinson, found that expecting one person to fulfill all of our sexual and interpersonal needs can lead to a lack of self-esteem, feelings of rejection and loss, and actually feel you to cause more or to feel more dissatisfied with your primary relationship.
So if all the studies are showing positive benefits, then why is there so much negative stigma attached with open relationships?
That's a great question. You know, I think it really does have to do with how much we value monogamy in our relationship. or in our society. So as Hosking pointed out, monogamy, it's enforced by many different factors, such as cultural products, you know, the media. There's economic constraints that make it much cheaper to live with two people rather than one. There are social factors, and then there's also just kind of this notion that, you know, monogamy, that's just kind of how it is. That's what we expect of people. Conley pointed out that we have this huge stigma around non-monogamy, and that actually might prevent a lot of people from having an open and honest discourse like we are here with their partners, which may lead to people not really realizing the full extent of their sexual needs and wants, and it also might have the unfortunate side effect of people never having a fully satisfying sex life.
Well, I've kind of noticed there's a lot of differences or similarities between open relationships and the swinging lifestyle.
Okay, so I know that you've mentioned this lifestyle. Can you tell us what exactly is it?
Well, Steph, swinging has many names, from wife swapping to the lifestyle. Swinging is when legally married couples get together to have sexual behavior with other legally married couples. So there are some similarities between an open relationship and swinging, but the biggest difference is that in an open relationship, both members of the relationship have dyadic sexual intercourse with other people outside of the relationship, whereas in swinging, they participate in this together. Okay,
so for our viewers out there who might be interested, what exactly is out there today for swingers?
Well, in 1969, Robert and Jerry McGillney founded a weekly social group for swingers. They eventually turned this into the Lifestyle Organization, which is one of the largest and oldest swinging organizations in the country. They founded their first convention in 1973. In 1980, their conventions were attracting up to 1,000 people. When Robert McGillney saw the support that the Lifestyle Organization was getting, he created the NASCA, which is the North American Swinging Club Association. This is a trade organization that has up to 1,000 swing clubs, swing parties, and swing magazine stores under it all around the world. Today, many researchers call swinging subculture, with its own parties, conventions, magazines, and sometimes these conventions even take up whole hotels.
Okay, so there's obviously a demand for this lifestyle, but do you think is swinging a good way to live?
Studies have shown that many people who end up start swinging usually stop after a period of a year due to jealousy, lack of trust, low sense of relation, and fear of being caught by family or children. The people who choose to start swinging report more frequent sexual intercourse with their partner and give a higher rating to their marital happiness. Overall, most researchers conclude that swinging does not help or hinder a marriage. It all comes down to the fact that both parties must be in mutual agreement as to what the guidelines are and how honest they're supposed to be. And if they do that, studies show that swinging can help a marriage.
Okay, so, you know, similar to a lot of other decisions that we would make in our relationships. Now, can you tell the audience here who swings? Like, what are the type of people who are going to be involved in this lifestyle?
Well, both when it began and now, people kind of have this idea that swinging is very weird. But research shows that the people who swing are people you see every day. When they were younger, they reported having less satisfying relationships with their parents. They typically interact more frequently with friends. They're detached from religious and political activities. They started heterosexual activities at a very young age. They're white. They live in the suburbs, typically in their 30s. They're married, just looking to add a little more to their sex life. These people are people that we see every day.
Great, and I'm glad that you've mentioned that. So are all swingers in the lifestyle solely there for the array and diversity of sexual partners?
Well, Carolyn Simons was the first person to categorize swingers as either utopian or recreational. And so a recreational swinger is exactly what it seems. Someone who's just in the swinging for the recreation of it, whether it meets your socialization needs, your exercise needs, or your sexual pleasure. But utopian swingers are very different. They're more philosophical. They want to share your house, they want to share education, they want to share family, they want to share food rations, and they want to share sexual activity. Studies show that this may be the early onset of polyamorous societies.
That's great. So Greg, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to bring Ibrahim out just after the break, and he's going to tell us a little bit more about what these polyamorous societies are and who lives in them. So stay tuned. everyone. So we're here with Abraham, and Abraham, thank you for being on the show. He's going to talk to us today about polyamorous relationships.
Yes, I am.
So Abraham, how many polyamorous relationships exist today?
Well, it's funny because a researcher that goes by the name of Elizabeth E. Emmons states that there's a national organization called Loving More, and they're a whole company, and they have a website, and they claim to have over 1,000 hits a day. So that should give you a rough estimate about how many people are in a polyamorous relationship.
Okay, so there's definitely some traffic. So what are some of the things that people would need to think about before engaging in a polyamorous relationship?
Well, Emmons goes on to state that there's two component parts that you need to know which side you are. So the first part is knowing yourself. So that means knowing your sexual identity and your sexual orientation, whether you want to be with more people or you want to have one single. And that'll help you associate yourself with the right crowd of people so you can get together with. The second part is understanding that the world is not very polyamorous friendly, and that you have to deal with all the baggage, as she calls it, the baggage of the monogamous world. And that would help you choose which side you're going to be on.
Okay, so from what I'm hearing, it seems as though polyamory doesn't have any intention to harm anyone, and it's frowned upon for no really viable reason. So if all the parties agree to the terms, then it should be easy, right?
Well, not necessarily. You see, the more people you add in a relationship, the more responsibilities you have to and troubles you encounter. Emmons, again, goes on to state that in order for a polyamorous relationship to work, everyone must be on the same page, and the guidelines must be followed, the rules must be strict, and that doing so would help run the machine of the relationship, and that these rules are a reminder to consent, and that consent is at the heart of successful poly relationships.
Okay, so what are the different models that one can find in polyamorous relationships?
Kathy Labriola stated that in her article that there are 3 different types of polyamorous relationships. The first being a primary-secondary model, which is the most commonly used, and it resembles the most like a monogamous relationship. The second is the multi-primary model, partners model, and this is the closed one. So there's a closed one and an open one. The closed one is where you have roughly 3 to 6 people. Everyone's engaged with only those people. It's a close-knit, introverted group.
Okay.
Partners can be varied from all girls to all men to intersex, doesn't matter. And they're all sexual partners, and it's a closed sexual system, and it's only allowed between those people. Currently, the most common form of this is a heterosexual or bisexual triad of like 2 women and 1 man, or 2 men and 1 woman.
Okay.
And the last one, what's good to know about that one is that they pull the resources together, sort of like a big giant family. The last one is the
Okay, so I just want to double check with you, just so our viewers back home can be completely certain on this. So the model that you were just talking about here, everybody would live in one house, sort of. It would be exactly like your regular marriage, if that's what you want to call it, except that you're going to have 3 to 6 partners instead of your typical 2.
Exactly.
So that means there's more moms and dads for the children, there's more people to pool their finances. Okay, great. So now on to this next model.
And the last one is the open one, which is kind of the opposite of the closed, as the name would state. All partners can start any relationship that they want personally with other people outside of the relationship. This allows for more flexibility and fluidity between partners. The only problem with this is that the level of commitment can fluctuate because of this flexibility, and that starting relationships with people randomly might damage that commitment bond with the other people in your group.
Okay, so with this type of model, do they normally live together?
No, they usually live relatively by themselves, and they just keep in contact with their group as well as with their other people.
So essentially what you're saying is that in this model, I could have relationships with 5 different people who may or may not be in a relationship together, and at any time I'm free to kind of go out and get any other relationships that I want.
It's very, very open.
That's interesting. Okay, so now myself and if other viewers at home are kind of wondering which group is best for them, I mean, how can they really go about figuring that out? How can they figure out what type of relationship?
Well, there's a few questions that you can ask yourself to understand what model you fall under. If you require a lot of security, if you wonder how much security you need, and you're a really high, strong security kind of person, you might want to be a primary, secondary person, because that involves 1 person to 1 person with other people around, but you have that primary source of commitment. If you feel like you need less privacy or you want to express your personal freedom more, you probably want a multiple partners open, because that allows you to see anyone that you want, anytime, anywhere. And if you feel like you need a bunch of people to help support you in a living environment, you might want to try a closed one, because that involves multiple people supporting each other and helping each other out together.
Great. Well, I think that's certainly given me and all of our viewers something to definitely think about. There's way more options than you may have ever been aware. So thanks everyone for tuning in, and I hope you all have a great night, and we'll see you next week.